Hi everybody, welcome to Help Me Communicate. I'm Mike Garska with SuccessToolChest.com and FindAMentor.com, and I'm here to help you communicate. I'm here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and today we're going to talk about how to use text, email, telephone, or person-to-person contact, and when's the best time and why. And so I want to start that conversation with how people communicate, because that's critical to understanding when is best and why it's best to use each of the methods of communication with this wonderful technology that we have nowadays. We have many different methods of communicating online, via our smartphones and our computers, and person to person. Now, when situations are critical and or the situation is very sensitive, it's extremely important that we connect face to face, and here's why. As people, when we communicate with other people, what's happening is what's called the human interaction process. I call it the HIP, the human interaction process. And that is happening when we are communicating with other people. And what happens is we sense something first. One of our 5 physical senses kicks in. We see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something. As soon as we, and mostly when we're communicating, we're hearing and seeing things. And as soon as we hear and see something, our thoughts start to go. And we start to perceive what we just witnessed. And we get a thought pattern around it. The other thing that happens in that is we get an emotion. We actually are feeling something. And out of the thought, the emotion, and what we would just witnessed, our senses, we derive an intention. And from that intention, we choose to act in some way. So we sense, then we think, then we feel, then we intend, and then we choose our action. Now, our action might be silence, it might be reaching out to other people, it might be touching, it might be choosing our words and speaking those words. Now, when we're communicating sensitive situations, what we want to do is get all of that information on the table. And in communicating, when we're communicating, there's a process that happens. We have body language that goes on. We have facial expression that goes on. We have voice tone that goes on. And in fact, only about 8% of our communications is the actual words we choose. Now, the words we choose are critical because they're interpreted by other people. And each person's HIP, human interaction process, I want you to understand, is as unique as each person's DNA. There are 7 billion humans on the planet with 7 billion different DNAs. There are 7 billion humans on the planet with 7 billion different HIP processes. So as people, we grow up and we adopt values and belief systems, and that's based on our family life and our teachers and our friends. And we develop a bunch of filters, and we develop responses to different situations based on our habitual filters and the way we perceive things. And so each person's human interaction process is extremely different. Now, when the sensitive situation is crucial and sensitive, then it's important that we get our human interaction process on the table. When I heard you say this, when I saw you do this, here's what my thought pattern went to. It made me feel like this. And what I want to come out of this is this. And the 5th part of the human interaction process in effective sharing of in conflict situations is to share our process. What I just witnessed was this. It made me feel this. It made these thoughts trigger in my head, and this is what I want to come out of it. And the other part of that process is then to find out what's going on in the other person's HIP. So when we're resolving conflict, we explore each other's HIP and get our resolution by understanding that process. So when the situation is sensitive, we have the body language, we have the voice tone, we have the facial expression. And it makes it easy to interpret those things. If I go to a situation where I'm only reading words, so in text or email, I am losing the body language, the facial expression, and the voice tone. And it makes it extremely easy to misinterpret what's being perceived. How many people have read a text and then went off on a whole tangent only to find out that they misinterpreted what the other person said, or read an email to go off on a tangent and started thinking all kinds of things that weren't accurate and in responding to something that wasn't actually accurate. It's because we read the words without getting the body language and the voice tone and the facial expression, and so we misinterpret it. So when the situation is sensitive or crucial, it's very important to avoid dealing with that situation on text or email alone. And you get these long texts with all kinds of information, and the opportunity for misinterpretation is extremely high, and that's when things go sideways, when we're misinterpreting. The best way to avoid misinterpretation is to face-to-face communications where we're reading body language, facial expression, and voice tone. Now, there are times when it's very difficult to get on the phone or get in person with each other. So the second best way to resolve or to deal with sensitive situations is on the telephone. Now, when we're dealing with a spouse, we live with that person, so we get to know them quite well. We love them. We get to know from their voice tone what their body language might be like. From their voice tone alone, we can read in behind the lines. When it's somebody that we hardly know, the voice tone is even easy to misinterpret it. So if there's a sensitive situation in business, it's important to get face-to-face in those situations. Second option in sensitive situations is phone, but avoid at all costs, in my opinion anyway, text and email. The best use of text is for short messages. Things like stopping at the store, do you need milk? Things like running 5 minutes late, there shortly. Things like you're on the way here, George just showed up, just to let you know. Just short, brief messages is what text is designed for, not two-page texts dealing with emotional situations. Emails are for longer messages that are words alone, but they're typically, the way I use emails is to confirm things that we've discussed in a previous conversation, and confirm what we've talked about to make sure that both people have it in writing what the agreement was. I'll use them to share minutes of a meeting. I'm often facilitating management and leadership meetings, and so we take minutes, and I'll share in an email the detail of the minutes. So it's, way too long to share in a text, so I'll share them in an email, and it gives each person the opportunity to read the minutes and make sure that all the minutes were recorded appropriately and that all interpretations are correct. So emails are great for verifying minutes. They're great for verifying agreements. I work with construction company clients. They're great for sending details on projects. But anytime there's an emotional component involved or a heightened emotional component involved, it's really important to get to that face-to-face communications. And second option there is to get on the phone if you can't get face-to-face, or do a video conferencing on the computer, because now we have that technology. Now, even in video conferencing, humans have electromagnetic energy fields. Our thought and emotional processes are like electromagnetic energy. And when we're in the presence of other people, there's opportunity for those two electromagnetic energy fields to combine, and it makes it easier and more effective to communicate in sensitive and crucial conversations. And it makes it easier to read what's going on for the other person, or to interpret it, because we see their body language and their facial expression, and then we also feel that energy back and forth, and so the chance of misinterpretation is less. There's opportunity to clarify, and anytime that we're dealing with sensitive and crucial conversations, it's extremely important to clarify. Okay, so when I said those words, what were your thoughts when you heard those words? Did you hear those words correctly? Often people misinterpret words, or they hear a different word and that sounds similar, and it means a whole different thing to them. And different people interpret different words and have different reactions to different words. For example, the word home to somebody that comes from a loving, compassionate and home environment that's very supportive will get warm feelings of camaraderie-ship and love and support. Whereas a person that comes from an abusive home that's beat up, where they were beat up or physically or sexually abused, are going to get feelings of guilt and shame and anger when they hear the word home. So we don't, especially in a work environment where we hardly know the people. Now, our friends we know, and most of the time we can interpret correctly how they're going to interpret a word or a phrase. In the work environments, we often don't understand that. So that person-to-person contact in sensitive situations is critical, and the clarification process is critical. When you heard me say that, what were your thoughts? How did it make you feel? What do you want out of this situation that we're discussing right now? And we find out what they sensed, what they heard, what they felt, and what their intention is, what they want. And as we go back and forth in that process, in a face-to-face environment, it makes it easier to resolve conflict or sensitive situations. So, sensitive situations, face-to-face. Confirming long details, use an email. Short messages, use a text. And telephone, telephone, it can be extremely effective when we're going back and forth with many texts on details, how to meet, or what's going on a project, or that kind of thing. Then often, in the interest of time management, it's much quicker to get on the phone and do a 2 or 3 minute phone call instead of each person typing for 10 minutes each back and forth. It just saves a lot of time to get on the telephone and go through details. It's much quicker to use telephone for sharing details or getting clear on a situation or a circumstance and how to move forward than it is to do it over text or email. So telephones for getting to the point of things and moving through unsensitive situations quickly, where you're just discussing details and trying to get agreement on a process or what the next step is. So telephone for avoiding many texts, that kind of thing. So hopefully that helps you. The second part of our show will always be a little bit about a work situation. And I recently did a project review with a client. And I often do project reviews where when a project is finished, we sit down with the superintendent and the project manager, and we analyze the different aspects of a project and what went right, what went wrong. We give each other feedback, what the superintendent could have done better, what the project manager could have done better. And in this particular situation, these two people had never worked on a project together before. And what came out of it in the job review is that both of them were quite frustrated with how each other communicated in certain situations. And so I my iPhone. I'm sorry about that. I'm recording from my iPhone. I thought I had my phone calls turned off, but it came through. So I'm going to back up a little bit because I'm not sure how this technology works and what if you might have missed something there. So I was saying that I recently did that job review with a client, and this project manager and superintendent had never worked together. At the end of that, they were frustrated with each other on how some of the communication flowed. And so my strong recommendation is, if you're working on a project, in a team, or even if you're working within a team in any business, it's extremely important that you negotiate what and how each person likes to be communicated with. There are certain things that person A wants to be texted on. There are certain things that person A wants to be phoned on, and those things may be different for person B. And so what I strongly recommend is, at the beginning of any project, or if you're working on a team, make sure the team has agreement. When do we use text? When do we use voicemail? When do we use phone? When do we use person to person? And make that agreement before starting a project. And if you're working on a team, have those agreements in place, keeping in mind that it's a good idea to renegotiate those sometimes. Sometimes things change, situations change, it evolves. Once we realize that, okay, we're dealing with this, we've agreed to deal with this situation on emails. Well, that's not quite working. Sometimes it's best to get on the phone because it makes things quicker in some cases. And so that constant renegotiation is very important. But agree, if you're working on a project with somebody for the first time, agree on how you're going to use each of our communications methods. When are you going to use text? When are you going to use phone? When are you going to use email? And when are you going to use face-to-face? Get that agreement. It makes information and communication flow much more effective in the project. Do the same thing in any team that you work with. Have your regular meetings. In those meetings, decide what's best for this team and the communications methods in which particular environments. The third part of Help Me Communicate Every Week will be a little bit about word choice. And today I'm going to talk about 2 words that I'm going to ask you to avoid. And those words are always and never. Why do we want to avoid using the words always and never in communicating? Absolute words like always and never, and there are a few others in our contact communications and masterminding program. We talk about different words to avoid and what to replace those words with. Always and never are part of that. And what's very important about the words, not using the words always and remember, is because absolute words like that put people on the defensive. If I say to somebody, you're always late for work, and you're going to get fired if you do it one more time, it's much more effective to say you're often late for work. You're late for work 3 out of 5 times. So if I say the word always, I'm actually lying to the guy. So what happens is I put them on the defensive, and I reduce my credibility because I use the word always, and it's not always. Even if he's late 1 out of 5 times, he's not always late. He's rarely here on time, or he's often late. And so by using that word, I soften the blow a little bit, and I have a less chance of putting him on the defensive, and a less chance of him thinking that I'm a liar. If I use the word you're never here on time instead of you're rarely here on time, rarely is a much more accurate statement. And when we're communicating in difficult situations, it's important to use accurate word choice. So always and never are rarely accurate. Use often and rarely instead of always and never. And you'll find that your communication will go smoother. And again, when I'm communicating difficult situations, somebody's always or often late, I'll say to them, you're late again today. So I'm sharing what I just witnessed, what I saw. I saw that he was late there today. When you're late, my thought goes to it disrupts the whole team. I feel frustrated because I'm trying to get this team. What I want is I want this team to hit on all 4 cylinders, and I want it to work well. So if one of the 4 cylinders is often late, it affects the team negatively. Now, if you can't be here on time, we need to find somebody that can be here on time. Can you commit to getting here on time and being a cohesive and consistent member of this team? And that's how I would coach somebody that is often late. And remember that it's okay to replace people on your team. Some people wait too long to fire people. And it's good when you're building your team to always have a coherent team that is in agreement and progressing forward in their methods. So avoid using always and often. Always share the hip when you're in a crucial conversation, what you witnessed, what you saw, what your thoughts are, how you feel, and what you want. And find out what's going on in the other person's hip. When you heard me say these words, what were your thoughts? How did you feel? What do you want to come out of this situation? Find out from the other person. Back and forth, getting that hip information out there. The last step of Help Me Communicate Every Week is about self-talk and choosing words for ourselves. And today I'm going to encourage everybody to develop a mantra for themselves that helps pick themselves up. One of the things that's very important in life is that we are positive thinking and positive feeling people. Does everybody agree that it's a good idea to be positive? Most people that I talk to agree that it's a good idea to be positive. And I often find, including myself, we get into these negative self-chatter situations. When something goes wrong, we beat ourselves up and we talk negatively to ourselves. In fact, I had a friend say to me once, if we talk to other people the way we talk to ourselves, we wouldn't have any friends. And so keeping that in mind, I think it's very important to have a few go-to phrases or words that we can use when we catch ourselves in that negative internal chatter, that we can use to lift ourselves out of that and push us into a positive thought and emotional state. Because it is positive thought and emotional state that makes other people like us and makes us more successful in life. And so I develop different mantras as I go through life that work for me. And when I catch myself in a negative chatter, I go through some of those mantras. Now, I was recently listening to a series of meditations done by Oprah and Deepak Chopra. And I found I call it an auto-suggestion, things that I repeat to myself over and over. And what I did in this situation, I found this auto-suggestion that I really liked. So I actually put it in my day timer and hit an auto-repeat on it. So I read it every day at least once. Sometimes I'll read it more than that. And when I'm feeling a little bit negative, I'll go go back to that day timer. It's right in my day timer every day, and I'll look at it. And the one that I came up with, and I'll read this out to you, is because it makes me feel good, and it's just a suggestion. And I do suggest that you find different mantras that you can change, that you can use for self-chatter, to eliminate that negative self-chatter. The one that came up with for me that I love from Oprah and Deepak were, my actions are in alignment with abundant cosmic law and my passion, purpose, peace, and love. I'm inspired and unstoppable. And I read that in my day timer once a day for the last month or so, and I quite like it. It actually lifts me up. It gets me into a positive feeling and a positive thought state. And that's what we need to do if we want to progress our life to different levels of success, both personal and business, is keep ourselves in positive thought and emotional processes. Positive thinking is not enough. We need positive feeling to go with that positive thinking. And it's important that our energy is in a positive state if we want to move forward. So develop some good internal negative chatter replacement mantras for yourself, and you will go to that next level of success. Avoid the word always and never. Replace them with often and rarely. And use your texts for short messages, your emails for longer messages where the situation is not crucial and critical, and for sharing minutes and details of agreements and details of agreements from conversations. Use phone to shorten your process so that you're not sending a million texts back and forth to agree on things. So in the interest of time management and work, use telephone to get resolutions to details of events and that kind of stuff done more quickly. Use person to person for those crucial and critical situations so that the body language, the facial expression, and the voice tone are present, and the opportunity for misinterpretation is reduced dramatically. I hope you enjoyed Help Me Communicate today on Wednesday, October the 4th. And if you need some information, more information on this HIP process, the human interaction process, go to successtoolchest.com. You can download the HIP PDF for free, or watch the free video on what the process is. So go to successtoolchest.com, click on the HIP Human Interaction Process, Effective Communications Tool, and you can get that information for free. It's a free download, a free video, and you will, to help you remember how people communicate. And it's important that you understand that process. The other thing that I want to mention to you today is we have a contact communications and masterminding program, and it's a program designed to help you communicate in crucial and sensitive situations, to help you get through conflict. It's a 7-step process using a contact system. It's normally $199. As we're launching this new program with Success Dual Chest, the Help Me Communicate program every Wednesday, and building out our new online products, you can get the contact communications program. It's normally $199. For the launch period here for the next month, it's going to be only $89. That's cheaper than the price of a good concert ticket or a good fight ticket. And do you think that learning to communicate in sensitive situations and conflict situations with more ease is worth $89? They don't teach us this stuff in school. I still don't get why they don't. Should be part, communications, conflict management should be part of every primary school course, in my opinion. People need to learn how to communicate. It's the #1 complaint of business owners and managers, is finding people that are good at communications. It's the #1 complaint of employees, is how people communicate. So learn to be a great communicator. Learn to take your life to that next level of success, both personally and in business, by becoming a great communicator. It's the most important tool of success. Take the contact communications course, or download the HIP PDF and live video for free at successtoolchest.com. And we'll see you next Wednesday for another session of Help Me Communicate. Go out and make it an awesome day. Bye for now.